position.
1 minute to go now.
So the position is very is automatically controlled, and also the attitude.
So 1 minute to go, and they were preparing for ignition very soon. And how long is the journey going to take for?
Roughly 10 minutes, because it's a very powerful engine, so it can go directly to the 400 kilometers altitude with 37-degree inclinations.
30 seconds to go to launch. There's a 20-second countdown to the ignition.
10
seconds to go.
8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1，点火！点火！
There it is. It's been ignited.
起飞，T 0 150单拐分2.3秒，191毫秒，150单拐分2.3秒，191毫秒。
Has lifted off. Mengtian Module has cleared the launch pad. They've got a pretty good view from where they are.
Exactly, and also you have heard that the technicians have reported the timing. That is a route timing for calculating the orbit. So that timing is very important for calculating when it is to be separated to orbit, and then this is very important for the preparation of rendezvous and docking. So you see, this is the optical tracking. So this can be only seen by an optical telescope.
文昌光学雷达跟踪正常，遥测向正常，文昌飞行正常。
And we're hearing a series of reports there.
It's
that are
already in the
flying.
cloud, I think. So you cannot see very
You can
clearly.
just see the flames. But despite the cloudy conditions, I think they're managing to get a pretty good view.
But the cloud was there for 3 days and 4 days. They have just seen about 30 seconds. So this is the camera on board the main booster. So you're seeing two of the strap-on boosters, left and right. So this is on the core segment. You'll see very soon that this strap-on booster will be separated from the main engine, from the main body of the rocket.
And we can expect that in just a few minutes, perhaps?
Yes, I think it's happening any minute now. So we're seeing that. So you can see that there are 5 flames. One is the core flame, that is hydrogen and oxygen. So this engine has very...
It's burning out a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah. But you know, this is the engine is very particular because it's the higher it flies, the more powerful it is. I mean, what we call it the ratio, propulsion ratio. It's more efficient once in outer space, but the kerosene is more efficient on the ground. So we're using the kerosene as a booster, and then the hydrogen and oxygen will be used for outer space flight. So you're seeing these strap-on boosters will be separated very soon once the fuel is burned out.
And then they will just fall into the sea?
They will be falling into the Pacific, yes. Well, that's the whole trajectory. They designed this launch site in Hainan, so that it does not fall on the ground and a habited area.
And then we're seeing that little, that's a simulation.
So that's the simulation. This, you see this is burning out, so the flame is not as powerful, so it will have a separation very soon.
And then will they be retrieved at all, or will it just be sort of left?
Current plan is drop into the ocean and give it to the fish. But we do have, you see there's a separation. So that will be dropped already.
The applause.
Yes. So now the core engine is the only engine that works. We call it YF77. This is the new generation liquid carrier hydrogen and oxygen engine. So this, I think, is inside the fairing. So the next maneuver is the separation of the fairing. Once in outer space, we call it 110 kilometers altitude, the fairing will be separate. You can see the middle is the seam of the fairing. We're using some pyrotechnics to separate the fairing once it's in altitude, because there's no atmosphere to drag the rocket. So you see the separation of fairing.
Right.
So the fairing has been dropped. So
This is all very quick, isn't it?
So yes.
A few minutes apart.
So now that means that the rocket is in outer space. There's no atmosphere at this moment. So you're seeing the images now is the Mengtian itself, the space, the segment itself. So the next move would be the separation between the Mengtian and the rocket itself.
Right.
And the finale would be the deployment of the solar panel. So that's what we would be considered as a success of the mission. That once you deploy the solar panel, that means that you have a right altitude and a right orbit,
right.
and you are ready to perform the rendezvous and docking.
So that's the main booster that's still going there, right? That we can see the simulation.
Yes, that's the what we call it the single stage rocket, because the strapped-on booster with the one engine can kick the whole payload into orbit.
Obviously, the boosters carry the propellant, but once it's once it's all used up and it's unwanted weight, it needs to be shed. But how much weight are these boosters?
Well, the boosters, this segment is about 20 metric tons, but once fully fueled, it has the rocket itself, along with the fuels, has more than 800 metric tons.
Oh, wow.
So, but once it's in orbit, the fuels are all burned out, and what you have left is the fuel container along with the engine itself. So that has, once it's in orbit, after the separation, it will slowly come down to Earth, and it will be disintegrated by burning in the atmosphere. So nothing will be left, and there's no danger posed to the humankind.
It's very environmentally friendly. Nothing left.
Yes, but the separation is happening at the very high orbit, about 400 kilometers above the Earth. So the coming down of the final segment, we call it final segment, even this single segment, which is the final segment, has to take some time. So there's a what we call it international norm or practice to what we call it passivate the final segment. Passivate by passivation we means that we discharge the batteries, we vent the containers so it does not pose explosion danger in orbit. Because with the solar radiation, sometimes it increase the temperature, and some of the containers can fragment in space. So we use a passivation technology to make it into a dummy, so it can slowly come down to Earth and disintegrate it in atmosphere.
How long would that take?
And that can take differently. I mean, it can be years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is this something that, would this be considered something fairly new, or is this something that's always been the norm?
This is norm. The passivation is relatively new. Before that, we don't consider passivation as very important. Now to consider the Earth environment, you have to minimize the space debris. So passivation, as well as what we call end-of-life propulsion of the satellite, is also very important. Either you push it back to atmosphere, or you push to what we call a graveyard orbit, so that you can move away, make ways for new developments.
So how long do you think we have to wait until we see the Mengtian?
The launching is roughly 10 minutes, more or less.
Okay.
So I think in 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 4 or 5. We're seeing the end of the propulsion of the engine, because the engine has its own capacity of fuel, and fuel has to burn out, and it does not have a second kickoff. So it's a single burn. So once you see the engine cease to burn, that means that we'll have separation. But before the engine cease to burn, there has to be a control of the rocket to insert the. So you see they shut off the engine. So that means the separation is happening.
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
There it is, the Mengtian lab module separating from the Long March rocket.
What you see is
that's from the rocket
that's the rocket itself. Yeah.
So the camera is on the rocket, but we're seeing the Mengtian separating from it. So it's on its way, and how long do you think before it docks?
In seconds, we'll start the deployment of the solar panels, and I think the astronauts are able to communicate already with with Mengtian, and the ground crew is to control the deployment of the solar panel before they make any movement, because the batteries are limited on board, so they have to be very careful on the next procedure. So every procedure is very carefully designed. So you see the separation.
Energy.
Exactly. You see the separation of the segment that does not have any major tumbles and turnings. So that means the altitude control can be easily done. So that is very important for the preparation of the docking.
So once the solar panels are deployed, that will be what primarily powers this module until it reaches the power space station.
To propel the module, it has its own engines. What we call an attitude control engine.
Which is powered by, now, its own batteries.
Not by battery, it's powered by fuel.
By the fuel, okay.
We'll call satellite fuels. And these fuels are only for spacecraft, not for rocket engine. But these are small engines that have, very small newtons of push power, so it can control the attitude of the spacecraft. The solar panels providing electricity and solar powers to power up the station, and also to provide communications and vital controls of the station.
So then the solar panels that you were saying that will be soon deployed, these big solar wings, they also are very important to powering this. Would that be powering it at all?
I think those solar panels, they're not going to deploy the big solar panels, because big solar panels has to be deployed once it's connected to the station. It's very large, and once you deploy that, it can be hard to maneuver the spacecraft. So everything that can be done to control the spacecraft for rendezvous docking is being considered at this moment. As you have just mentioned, the solar powers and electricity for propulsions, this is new technology, very new technology. We're using electricity to propel the spacecraft. We use what we call a plasma engine. This is very new technology that has been developed by some countries, in particular for smaller adjustments. So you do not have to carry fuels on board the satellite and have a longer sustain of the spacecraft in orbit. So they use to convert the electricity into propulsion. This is a very new thing that is happening at this moment.
The docking process itself, I mean, is that a very lengthy process?
Not very lengthy, but it has to. But the alignment of the docking is very lengthy, because you have to control the spacecraft, the two spacecraft that you're going to dock at a very precise speed, and then you have to accelerate a little bit, and then you have to accelerate, also align these docking pods together. So it has to be 180 degree and very precise, particle and vertical and horizontally precise. And the speed is very important. You have to control the speed. And also there's an automatic locking. Once you dock that, there's a locking device, and also a connection of the fuse and pipes and cables. That is also very important. So all of this alignment takes some time, but the final docking happens just a few seconds.
Right. What's the preparation for that?
Yes, there's what we call alignment in 150 kilometers. 30 kilometers, and then 10 kilometers, 5, and then up to the meters. So for alignment, there are many maneuvers that you have to perform before you go ahead for the final docking.
Distinguished guests, their leaders, according to the flight data of Long March 5B Y4 and according to the calculation of Beijing Space Control Center, our Mengtian lab module has entered in the orbit successfully. Now I would like to announce a successful mission has been accomplished.
And that announcement officially.
Here, on behalf of the Launch Site Command Center, I would like to extend a sincere gratitude to all the distinguished colleagues and dear experts and distinguished officials for your kind support. This is the end of today's mission. Thank you very much.
And that's it. That's the last of the hardware, isn't it, for
Exactly.
For the space station?
Every time they have a launch, the screen turns red. I mean, we're so used to that reddish thing.
It's our auspicious color.